Bob Belber is the general manager of the Times Union Center and a good friend of ours, and Bob drops by to talk about a sport that I'm not bought into, but I'm sure Bob will tell me just how popular this sport is and will be, and we're talking UFC. Bob Belber, Roger Weiland, good morning.
Good morning, Roger. How are you?
I'm good, Bob. Everything's good. I mean, I like to talk to you about, when we're going to get the first and second rounds of the NCAA basketball tournament here again and all of that. But I guess the lead, at least right now, is this December 9th UFC fight card that you have coming to the Times Union Center. How popular is this going to be, Bob?
It's going to be a very popular event. Obviously, the pent-up demand for the UFC and the mixed martial arts for the fans in upstate New York and even surrounding states in Vermont, in Manchester or New Hampshire and Western Mass. There's a lot of people that follow this and not only see it on TV, but there are fighters from their regions that they very much want to follow. And anybody in upstate New York that has been in the UFC fighting side of it has had to go out of the state. The fans have had to go out of the state. So now that it's been approved and we have our date confirmed on December 9th, I think it's going to be an absolute huge event. We expect once the on-sale date is announced that it'll probably sell out relatively quickly.
Wow.
We don't have pricing yet. We don't have the card set yet, or at least given to us from the UFC. But we're expecting that very soon. They're already working out the marketing details and so forth. So that tells me that they're probably going to want to launch this in the next couple of weeks.
All right, so officially right now, though, the tickets are not on sale for this December 9th event yet.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, sold out. What would be a sellout in your building for this event?
So based on the ring being in the middle and a small access ramp and so forth coming out of the east or the west end zone, my guess is our capacity is going to be right around 16,700, 16,800. So it's going to be a very sizable crowd. The total capacity with like a comedian in the center of the building would be around 17,500. So it'll be close to 17,000 people.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And I'm not fully bought in yet, Bob, but I guess I better get there. And I'm going to tell my colleagues, Chris Honorado and Ashley Miller, we better get ready to cover this event, because with 16,000 people in the building, somebody thinks it's a big deal. How many of those people will be local, and how many people are coming from, other parts of New York State?
I think you're going to see probably about a 50-50 mix. I really think there's a lot of people local that are going to want to go for the first time. But you're also going to get a whole lot of people that have not had the opportunity, even from Syracuse or, for that matter, even Rochester. Rochester has Jones from there, which is one of the big fighters in the UFC, but they haven't had any fights based on not having it approved in the state. They will have a fight in 2017. And our company manages that building, and I oversee the bookings there. So I will tell you that that's going to happen in 17 in Rochester, and eventually we'll have one in Syracuse as well. But we're the first in upstate New York to have a UFC event, and part of that, I think, is really because of the effort that we put forth and the hearings that we went to with the Assembly in New York City and so forth, explaining really how they've changed the sport and how they've protected the fighters with a lot more policies and procedures and officials, the way that they're trained. And, that was a big thing, even to Jeff Blatnick, rest his soul. He was a very good friend and obviously a very big advocate of getting this approved in New York.
Bob, Zach By here hanging out with Roger in studio. I have a question for you. Where does this event stack up in, the pantheon of events that have come through the TU Center? And when I think of big events, I think of, the NCAA tournament, when WWE comes here and has like a pay-per-view with things along that nature. Where does this stack up in contrast to those things that I just mentioned?
Well, I think part of where that's going to stack up and rank among, for example, the 2003 East Regional Basketball, which I think arguably might have been the biggest sports event that we've had in the building. But then there will be some people out there that will say that the Arena Bowl with the Firebirds sold out on Wide World of Sports was, equally as big. But I think the UFC and this first event, which we expect to have sold out with close to 17,000 people, is the ranking is going to depend on the card. So if it's a major championship belt type of event, then and it's sold out at 17,000, then it could be right up there with the very biggest sports events that we ever had. So it's going to really depend on what the card comes back like and who the fighters are.
Hey, Bob, one final from me, in addition to what you got going on December 9th. What's the likelihood, I get bids out, what's the likelihood of the Times Union Center, getting the NCAA tournament, men's tournament, in any capacity back there anytime in the near future?
Well, we're real optimistic on that, Roger. We spent a lot of time on our bids to make sure that we've got what they're looking for in the way of a host facility and a market. And now with all the renovations that are being done at the arena, with the new media center being built, and with the convention center that's being built behind us, where we'll be able to host practices for the teams, as well as fan festivals that'll be indoor, and the connection to the Renaissance Hotel, which could be a host hotel. Now we've got very legitimate, beautiful new venues that are going to be available to the NCAA, and that's a tremendous difference. And we've obviously been using the renderings of what it's going to look like, and we've educated the selection committee on just how great this market is going to be for their events. We've already had great history, as you know, in 1995, and with the first and second rounds, we were the first to sell out in the country. And then in 2003, for the East Regional, where Syracuse won it here and went on to win the national championship that year, we were the first regional to sell out that year also. So we've got a great college basketball market. We all know it here. The NCAA knows it. And when you add that to great new facilities that are very much needed to host it properly, I think we've got a very, very good chance. I don't want to be over-optimistic, but I'm very optimistic that we'll land at least 1 year on the men. I expect we probably will land another year for the women. We've also bid on the women's volleyball, which is huge right now. No matter where they go, they're putting in 14,000 people. And then we also are submitting for the Capitol Center, for the Convention Center, to host the NCAA fencing championships. So when I tell you that we've been aggressive on the NCAA bids, it's an understatement.
No question about it. Bob, I appreciate a few minutes. A lot of people asking about the UFC, and you gave great information on that. We look forward to that coming up on December 9th. Have a great weekend, and thanks for a few minutes on our new home here on Big Board Sports.
Thanks, Roger. Take care.
Thank you, Bob. Bob Belber, GM of the Times Union Center.